Alina Vandenberghe, co-founder and co-CEO. I have Andrei with me today, and we're going to talk about how to create amazing customers experience, amazing customer stories to turn into raving customers for life. And we're also going to go into very tactical tips around how to devote your energy to activities that work in an economy that's turning into a strange direction these days. I want to ask you a few questions in regards to things that are happening in your audiences and in your messaging that might be specific to the strange economical times that we're all seeing. And I'm going to go straight into it. What has changed in your messaging in the past quarter? Has it changed to match the existing economy?
So there's definitely been a concerted focus to understand how effective our messaging is with our target audience. We've actually, in the last 6 months, I think, developed a muscle. It's still growing over time, but really developing a muscle around message testing. So where we started with that was obviously doing a lot of qualitative research, looking at win-loss analysis, interviewing people that decided not to buy our solution, all the way now to even more advanced testing at scale, where we use Winter as a platform to do a lot of A/B testing with our messaging, and specifically being able to derive scoring around propensity to learn more, clarity of the score. So even within our own team, we have KPIs that are specifically around message clarity. And we have numbers that we want to hit in terms of our overall audience being able to understand very quickly and clearly, why should they buy PandaDoc? What is PandaDoc, especially in a market like ours that has a lot of big players and a lot of saturation?
Are you noticing any changes in your traffic or in how your customers are engaging this quarter compared to any other quarters normal?
Yeah, so I think like a lot of companies, we've made some decisions around, what's actually driving performance, right? We rely heavily on PPC and SEO, and that brings a tremendous amount of traffic our way. In fact, we've actually seen a huge increase in also branded traffic coming to our website as well. So, which is great on the brand side that more people know about PandaDoc. But from a PPC perspective, we've turned off a lot of things that don't necessarily bring a lot of value downstream from a revenue perspective, and then focused really in terms of the channels that are driving the best results for us. Why is it working well? Like what are the segment dynamics that make this channel perform really well, and then the messaging that supports that as well.
How do you measure success for top of the funnel for your content?
Yeah, so purely top of the funnel, we're going to look at net new website visitors, that being a huge one for us. Audience growth is another one that we care about. And we're also really interested in brand engagement. We learned that over 30% of our high intent leads actually come from word of mouth and social, right? So we have to ask them those questions, because if I look at Google Analytics, it's going to just say organic search, it's just like, okay, that's not how you heard about us. That's where we were able to drive that conversion point.
Besides pipeline, what other metrics do you measure specifically in your brand role, since the top of the funnel is a bit harder to measure?
A big one for us is message clarity. I've created a metric that our messaging, when we do focus groups, when we do clarity testing with our message, there's an 80% minimum threshold, meaning 80% of the audience has to find that message to be clear and compelling. And what we did is we actually put our homepage through a massive amount of testing and scrutiny, everything from the overarching UI, UX layout, all the way down to the messaging itself. We proposed, let's start with the messaging first before we change anything else. So we did a bunch of testing. We got some clarity scores that gave us 87% confidence that our message is super, super clear. And then we started rolling that into the homepage, the new version of the homepage, and saw an 8.7% lift in signups.
I really admire how much attention you pay to customer experience, because brand is customer experiences throughout the full cycle.
Yeah.
And it's not only when people see your logo or interact with your content, it's when they buy a product from you. Even when they churn from you, that experience has to be something that you're proud of. And I imagine that as you're going through this secret shopper experience is one of the reasons why you bought Chili Piper as well, because you wanted to have reduce the friction point. What other things made a huge difference for you this quarter or the past quarter in improving that customer experience?
One of the best things that we did, and I'd recommend everybody do this, especially marketing, we were secret shoppers of our own tool. So we literally had somebody on our team create a fake alias and go through the entire buying experience from start to finish. They had a fake business, they had a fake name, all of these things. It was fake news at its finest. But we learned literally how many emails they were receiving, how many phone calls they were getting from an SDR. They were also being like, well, the app queues notification was saying this, but then the email was saying that, and they're kind of contradictory, right? So like, what is actually happening here? And I think it's super important as marketers that we become empathetic to just the high degree of BS that our customers have to go through just to get an answer to a simple question, right? Or figure out how to use our product. You know, as a brand strategy guy, you know, I don't think about brand through the lens of, oh, our colors and our logo. Of course, that's part of it, but that's not the main focal point. Like the brand is like the singular idea, the reputation that the customer has of you, not of what we have of ourselves. And I think going through like a secret shopper experience is very illuminating in terms of really helping you understand. If on our website we talk about being super easy to use, if we talk about being like best in class and super sophisticated or flexible, but if my buying experience doesn't reflect that, well, I'm failing on the brand level. I'm not delivering on the promise. And now the customer has a completely different perception of me than I have of myself.
You have some techniques for creating authentic customer stories. What are top ones that are working really well for you for PandaDoc?
I think primarily thinking more like a journalist than a content marketer. You know, it starts there where a journalist their job is to uncover the truth. And truth largely lies in the eyes of the beholder, right? And realizing that your customer, being the hero, seeks a certain type of truth, has experienced a certain type of truth, maybe in a way that is unorthodox or alternative to the way you can prescribe it in your own narratives as a business. So I think a really key part of generating great customer stories is literally going in with no expectations that you're gonna hear this perfect story with a beginning, middle, and end, but more this evolutionary process around what are their motivations, what are their experiences, what are the things that they wake up every morning and think about, and then really just kind of having an actual conversation with them. I don't follow a script, because when I follow a script, then I feel like I'm trying to push them to answer questions in a certain type of way. Rather, I'll usually ask questions based on something they just told me to try to uncover a layer deeper. And a lot of this can actually be traced back to a jobs to be done framework. I think a lot of times marketers in particular think about the functional elements of jobs to be done. You have a job, you're a director of sales. You have a revenue goal, you have a team to manage, you have a process to follow. Those are the functional elements of your job. But then there's also these emotional components and social components. The emotional being like, well, why are you a sales leader in the first place? Do you love what you do? Do you get a sense of pride out of your work? The social benefits being like, you know, generally speaking, how do you want to be perceived by your clients? How do you want to be perceived by your team? How do you want to be perceived by your boss? So I think in a lot of these customer interviews, when you try to unpack what their truth is, looking at it not just from the functional side, but also the emotional and social, you combine those three things together, and that can actually produce some amazing content.